And we are live. Hello, everybody in TV viewer land. Hello, Monique.
Hello,
How are
Oliver.
you?
I am super today.
Super.
Super.
I'm also super. Not least because we're standing in one of the most beautiful gardens in the whole world.
Yes.
Fair?
Yes, absolutely. My favorite place in all of Paris.
Not the world.
Well,
We'll start with Paris and
We'll
see if
start
we
with
can
Paris.
convince you as well. People, let us know where you're watching from. Midnight in Phoenix, Arizona, says Wayne.
oh.
Oakland, we've got some Americans watching.
Oh, cool.
Keep letting us know. I see a bunch of people are
Yes.
watching. And in case we didn't mention it, we're in the Jardin du Luxembourg.
Luxembourg.
And we're going to walk through it, around, and into Paris.
Yes.
But I thought what we'll do before... Oh, no, maybe we should start walking as it's a walk show.
Yeah.
And we'll go this way.
Okay.
Okay, so Monique, and keep telling us where you're watching from so we can read the comments. But to start off, Monique is going to be giving us an introduction to a part of Paris. Well, maybe you should explain. What are we doing?
Well, what we're doing today is we're going to take a little peek into what we call at Entrée to Black Paris the history and culture and contemporary life of African Americans and the larger African diaspora in Paris. And we're starting at the Luxembourg Garden because this is the place where we have our most popular walking tour.
And that's something we're going to be talking a lot about, your walking tours. We're going to be talking a lot about Black Paris. But we're going to start by showing what we're seeing, because as lovely as we are, nothing, as lovely as we might be,
Yes.
this walk itself is, I mean, I've been in this park many times. I've never done this little alleyway walk bit, which is
Okay.
quite nice.
Yeah.
But as we start talking a bit more about, I'll just let you know, Monique, where people are watching us from.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, folks at home, Monique said once 60 people were on a tour and it was far too many, and I said we're going to beat that today.
Yes.
With people viewing, and just so you know, we're rounding up to 40 now.
Woo!
So people watching. Okay, I'm going to pause to read you the comments. Okay.
Okay.
We have Canada. We have Portland. We have Virginia at 3 a.m. Hello,
Oh
Deborah.
my.
That's a
Hey,
good
Deborah.
effort.
Yeah.
What else have we got? San Jose, Melbourne, Australia, Newcastle, Northern California, New Zealand. This is great.
This is fantastic.
California, Portland, Tasmania, Paris. Oh, we're going to Paris
A
as well.
Paris person.
Okay, that's enough. Okay, Chicago, Manchester, Denmark, Germany. Oh my God, it's
God.
good, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So just one. I've never been here. This is cool. Okay, so everybody at home, if you think this is a video that your friend is gonna like, why not send them the link? Because we're gonna be walking for a while,
Yeah,
right?
we are.
Okay. Now, entree to Black Paris.
Yes.
There's a link to it below, everybody, so you know what we're in for. And this is our first stop by the looks of it.
Yep.
The runner, the man running. This, okay.
Yes.
And another Melbourne. Okay, so now we know where you guys are. Now we're going to sort of start the tour. And how are we going to do this? Is this, should we show you? Why don't you tell me what we're looking at?
Okay, so first of all, we are looking at a piece of art called Le Cri l'Écrit, which was commissioned by the French government to commemorate and to honor the enslaved persons from the French Empire, so to speak.
Right.
You know, back in the day. And so this space has actually been dedicated to the enslaved people of the colonies.
And let's go and take a look at that.
Yeah.
This whole space, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Just to give you a gist, everyone, for their fight and their profound desire and dignity and liberty, the slaves of the colonies have contributed to the universal human rights, and France pays homage to them here. That's the gist. I did the gist version of it.
Yep.
And then on this side, is that representative of something?
Yes. So.
Veins.
Yeah. Well, there are words that are sort of bas-relief on this sculpture. Most of the words are words of sadness, torture, anguish, but there are some words of hope. You can see that there are vessels.
Right.
Okay, so our interpretation is that the red vessels are the vessels of a human,
Right.
and the green ones are vessels, quote unquote, like what you would find in plants. So the
yes.
sap would be running through them. And so The chain has an open link at the top, which represents freedom. The middle link represents slavery. And the bottom link, which is embedded into the earth, is the link that the earth is the ball of the chain.
Right.
And it represents that if we are not careful, we can go back to where we were
Right.
before.
Impressive.
Okay. So this is one of the stops. We do 2 walks in the Luxembourg Garden. One is a open tour, which
There's a height difference.
there's a big height
What if we do
difference.
this?
I'll tippy toe.
Are we basically gonna do kind of the walks that you do, or is it kind of a mix? Or
No, we're gonna just hit a couple of highlights. We're just gonna walk through. We're gonna exit the garden actually next, and we're gonna walk down to Montparnasse because I want to tell you a little bit about some of the work that my French nonprofit and my U.S. nonprofit do, and also we're gonna hit a few spots on additional walks.
And if you guys think we're not going to be talking about that non-profit, you're crazy, because that's a bit of a theme. But we'll get to that later. I also want to see if I can slip in some little Paris bits as well, because you've been here for
Almost 30 years, 28 years on June 6th.
That's a good run.
It's a great run.
Wow, you've really made a place for yourself here.
Yes.
28 years.
Yeah.
So you probably know all the little secrets and the corners of this city that
I know a lot.
that
but
I'm yet
Paris-
to discover.
Well, yeah, but Paris is inexhaustible. And so even if you're here 50 years, there's always going to be something
Yeah.
to discover.
People sometimes ask me, how do you keep coming up with ideas for your podcast, Oliver? And I say, this city, if you can't find ideas in this city, you could interview the same person 10 times over
Yes.
about 10 different things.
Yes, absolutely.
And then once again, same with like this place. Like I never walked down that lane or this bit, or I don't know what that is.
So back there is where the workers who take care of the garden, that's their space.
This
But
here?
Back here,
Yep.
yeah. You can see it says access strictly reserved.
Shall we
for
go in?
authorized
Let's go
persons.
in, Monique.
Right.
We're
let's
doing it.
Rip that chain off right there, and we can go in. But if you go farther and farther back, there are actually hot houses back there, and
What's a hot house?
so a hot house is like where you would overwinter plants, or if there were plants that needed a sort of a semi-tropical or
I
tropical
see.
environment.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can probably, I can show you, we can get a shot of that as we leave.
Okay, awesome.
And when every September, there's the Journée de Patrimoine.
Oh yeah.
So you can actually go back there.
I love it. That's one of
Yeah.
my favorite days, except and Monique's referring to the day that all the places you can't usually get into are open for patrimony, although there's often a long line out the front of all of them.
Yeah.
I love your beret today, by the way.
I thank you.
Do you often wear a beret?
I do wear a beret in the winter and in the spring and in the fall.
I can't pull off the look. I don't know. I don't know where to begin even. Isn't that meant to be like a side thing?
Well, you can do whatever. You can have it. Tom likes to pull it up like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because Tom is my husband and my business partner.
And photographer today.
Yes.
He's somewhere.
Lurking somewhere.
Before we go out, I'm just going to show what,
Yep.
because I'm sure people who've come to Luxembourg Gardens before are familiar with this center bit. And it's nice to be in here on a Sunday morning when there's,
Relatively few people.
right? Yeah. How have you found it being in Paris when it's so empty like this?
I love it.
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
I love it. I love it.
I mean, I've never ever been here this empty. This is great. I'm loving it.
Oh yeah.
So now we're over 50 people. We're gonna break your
You're
record.
gonna break the record.
Here we
Yay!
go. So bird, crazy bird.
Yeah.
This is the center of the sort of the famous part of the Luxembourg Gardens. As people are commenting, but I'll catch up on them.
Right.
But the first time I ever came to Paris, I sat on one of these benches, walking to where we're going now, and took a picture of the pond. And it wasn't until years later I looked at my phone, and you can see the Eiffel Tower over there if you see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like a little magic moment for me,
Yeah.
Lovely.
And so it's the Luxembourg Palace, and we actually love this little palace. The first time that I visited it during the Journée de Patrimoine, I really felt like I could live in here.
In the palace. Yeah.
It's a palace, yes, but it's an intimate palace. It's not like Versailles,
Sure.
which is just cold.
It's a manageable palace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So very cool. And then the boat basin in front.
Have you ever done the boat racing?
No.
No.
But I love watching the kids when they're out doing it. And often we have, gotten shots of the people who bring the boats. The boats get
Oh, yeah.
rented.
Yeah.
So they're coming usually from that way, and they've got this big like push cart with boats all over it.
Yeah.
And then they set up down there, and the parents rent the little boats for the kids.
And they're not motorized. I asked a woman the other day, I was like, well, have you got a little motor in them? She said no. And I also asked her, what's the most popular flag out of all the countries? And do you know what she said?
What?
Can you guess?
Yes.
No, the pirate flag.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everyone
Oh, my
goes for the
God.
pirate. Okay, where are we going? That's enough of a distraction. I tend to
Okay.
get distracted.
That's all right. Paris is made for that.
Oh, I like that. That's true.
Yes.
So what comments have I missed, folks? Don't forget, as is a walk show, it's interactive. You can ask, well, Monique hasn't promised to answer anything, but I think you can ask anything. Doesn't mean you get an answer, right?
Right.
But
I'll do my best.
Deborah says, you're rocking that beret, Miss Monique.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have several.
What's your favorite?
This one, actually.
Yeah. I should have moved to Paris 28 years ago on my birthday, maybe next year. Someone
Ooh.
wishes they did what you did.
All right.
And
The best thing I've ever done outside of marrying Tom.
yeah, it's okay, you can't hear us. You can say whatever you like.
Yes, yes, yes.
So Tom, Monique's referring to Tom, who also is your business partner, as you said.
Yes.
And we said that we won't even look, but he's taking pictures of us somewhere,
Yep.
like hiding in a tree or something. French Fair asks, where do you live, Monique?
I live in the 5th arrondissement, which means district, and very close to the Rue Mouffetard, if you know anything about Paris.
Oh, these guys all know everything about Paris.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're a block behind Rue Mouffetard, and we absolutely love it. We live down at the bottom end, which is where the food market part is.
Oh, that's so lovely down there.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm envious.
yeah,
I would like to live around there one day, I think.
yeah.
Is it
It's
all
great.
that it's hyped up to be?
I think so, and the hype is not, it's not a bad hype. I mean, it's a very villagey type feel. And there's the hot houses that I was telling you about. Look over the fence.
All right, we're
Way off
going
the wall.
off road. Oh yeah, I see them
So those are full of plants.
from the garden behind us.
No, actually, they're not planted in the garden. They're just raised here.
I see.
There's a couple of these that are devoted completely to orchids.
Oh, lovely. We need to get in there.
And then there are other kinds of plants as well. I'm not really a plant person in terms of knowing, all about the names and everything, but they're certainly quite beautiful.
Unbelievably, this very topic came up in the very last walk show I did, which was yesterday.
Yeah?
And it's becoming a theme for the Eiffel Tower, so I think I'm going to learn. Someone said there's an app you can get that identifies every plant immediately on your phone.
Really?
Yeah, so
Oh, wow.
the Eiffel Tower botany will be coming up in future.
Oh, we'll have to get that because I'll tell you, that's interesting too, because I am in we're gonna go this way.
This way.
I am in a little group. We're gonna cross here and just stand next to that sculpture.
Got it.
And we were talking, this woman, one of the women in my group is from Ireland, and she was talking about weeding.
Right.
But she said, but I don't want to call them weeds. I will call them plants that no one has planted.
Oh, I love it.
And I said, so that really inspired me. And so then Tom and I, when we walk around, we started looking at the weeds and taking pictures of the flowers. And we send them to a woman who knows all about plants, and she identifies them for us. And we've been posting those on our Facebook page.
Oh, that's so lovely. There's a
Yeah.
shout out to, it's not the Entree to Black Paris page
No,
though,
it's the Paris Insights.
Paris Insights
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I think this is where we're stopping, is that right?
Yes. So this is a sculpture. It is a bust that honors Gaston Monnerville. Gaston Monnerville was from French Guiana, a man of African descent, and he led the French Senate for over 20 years. And he is, if you can turn this way, you can see that he is looking in the direction of the Luxembourg Palace, which is where the French Senate meets.
And your future house one day, maybe.
My future house,
Yeah.
yes. And so he is actually one of the people that we talk about on one version of our Luxembourg Garden tour on Black history. And this big esplanade that's behind here was named after him.
Ah yes, I see. Hommage à Gaston Monnerville,
Yes.
homme d'État.
Born in Guyana.
There you go, President. So 47 to 68 for anyone good with dates and memory. But that's a lovely, beautiful park there. Can one go on the grass there as well during the summer, or is that?
I think that they will have signs that say which grass you can be on and
Yeah.
which grass you can't, just like in the Luxembourg. But people are mostly on the benches in here. And we're going to go down and we're going to keep walking toward, if you can get a shot of the observatory down
Oh
there.
yeah,
That's
I'll
the
do the
direction we're
zoom.
going to walk.
This is where we're going. So the observatory. We're heading into. I guess this is heading towards the 14th arrondissement.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but we're in the 6th, and I'll show everyone the street sign as we pass it. Although I think you can figure it out because we're at the south end of Luxembourg Gardens. And French Fair wants to know if your tours are in French or English.
They're in English.
English.
Mhm. We're thinking about doing one in French, but for now, I mean, we have so many, it's hard.
Yeah, I was looking at your site. We're going in?
Do you want to walk through here?
Absolutely.
Or do you want to walk down the street?
Forget the street.
Okay.
The parks have been closed for months, Monique. We need to get in them again.
It's true.
Did you miss these green spaces during the confinement?
I did. We would come by the garden and we would take pictures through the gate.
Oh yeah.
And you know, the lockdown started on March 17th, so that was really early spring
Yeah.
for us. And in the garden there is an orchard. A lot of people don't. Did you know about that?
In the
Luxembourg
yeah. Orchard. No.
There is an orchard in the back corner of the Luxembourg Garden. I say back, you know, everything is relative, but back considering where we entered.
Yeah.
And they are all espalier trees. Do you know what those are?
Espalier trees. Is it what you make espadrilles from? I don't know. I told you there's a lot I don't know, Monique.
So espalier trees, what it means is it's a way that you train the plant or the tree to grow so that it's like this.
I have to show what you're doing.
Yeah, so it's like this. So it's almost like a two-dimensional as opposed to a round. And so you can get a lot more trees in the same
I
space
see.
that way, and they grow apples and pears.
That's so
and-
cool. Okay, now I need to know where it is though. So where we walked in the back, near where they keep the bees?
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly.
That place is full of surprises.
exactly. And did you
Nice.
know that they teach beekeeping?
I saw some people,
There.
because I saw right as the gardens opened again, I saw some beekeepers, and I thought they were in hazmat suits because of the corona
Virus,
COVID thing. But now, okay, so they teach it there as well.
Yep, and they harvest the honey and they sell it. It's the French Senate. The French Senate owns the Luxembourg Garden.
Right.
So everything that goes on in there is controlled by the Senate, and it's not the French government, it is literally the French Senate. Okay, so that's a whole different thing. And so they harvest the fruit, they actually eat the fruit.
Just send it?
Yes.
Yep.
And they harvest the honey and they sell it.
They got a good deal in there, the Senate.
Yeah, they do.
I want some of that honey.
They do.
I'm going to show, just on a side note over to the side, this is something we've been seeing in Paris a lot, statues wearing masks.
Yes.
And that's something we should talk about too, Monique.
Yes.
People may be wondering why we're not wearing masks.
Yes. Oh, both of them have them.
Oh yeah, I don't know if my
Um,
zoom is strong enough.
So the porte de masque, which is what it's called in French, so wearing masks in public is recommended. It is not required. Okay? If you are out and about and you are going into places where there are going to be people you don't know, you're going into a commercial space or something like that, it is strongly advisable for you to wear a mask. And there are lots of places that will not even allow you in
Yep.
if you don't have on a mask.
Yep.
So it's always wise to bring your mask, even if you're walking like now, like we're walking and it's just us and we know we're not. Look, boat, that man is bringing a boat.
Oh, that's just what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I love it. You get the interrupted thought thing of a walk show.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
it's all about.
Oh yeah, I'm always interrupting myself.
Yeah, me too.
And you see all of them have masks.
That's true.
And that's the family, but they have masks. And you know, when you're at the boat basin, often you'll have to come up close to somebody because your boat is there. All right. And so even though you're supposed to keep a meter of distance, it literally, you know, when you're in motion, it's often impossible to keep a meter of distance. People pass you on the street or whatever. Nobody's walking out into the street to avoid you to give you a meter of distance. But you're also not there breathing on people and
Sure.
etc. But they're being cautious and they're being safe, and that's the best thing to do.
I touched hands with someone on the street accidentally yesterday.
Did you wash immediately?
I watched it, freaked me out. We bashed hands with each other. I was like, ah!
Yeah.
But I think people seem to be taking it pretty seriously around, and all your walk tours and stuff.
Yeah. When we start up again, everyone will be required to wear a mask, including the guide, and we will have to maintain social distancing.
So it would make no sense for 60 people on one of your
No,
tours.
it would not be possible.
But we still have 50 people watching here right now, and I noticed French fairs. I'm loving the scrunch sounds under your feet, which reminds me, have we stopped for a reason?
No, we just wanted to. Well, we were gonna look at the boat, the family with the boat.
Because there's kids there, I don't want to
Yeah.
go film them.
No,
Because French people sometimes don't like it.
Well, that's
but I got a little zoom in from a distance.
that's good.
But the boat was a red one, not a pirate one, so they must have gone rogue themselves. Because usually they're the colors of countries' flags, right?
Well, actually, the sail will have the flag on
Yeah,
it. It's
that's
not
right.
necessarily the
Ah,
body
yeah,
of the
right.
boat, the hull, but the flag will be on the sail.
That's a very unusual Parisian building there.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know who built it, but that's the Art and Archaeology Institute.
I love it. And they've got all the designs along the side. It's very early on a Sunday morning for me. I forgot the words. I'm doing another video tonight at 9 p.m.
Oh,
And I did one last night at 9 p.m. So I don't know my own name at the moment.
okay.
Well, that's a
You're a
nice one.
brave
Look at
man.
that.
Oh, yeah.
So what's our next stop, Monique?
So our next stop is going to be the Carpo Fountain, which we're coming up on. I see that the fountain is not running. They have actually stopped the fountains from running, at least most of the fountains, because there were traces of coronavirus found in the water.
Oh, wow.
But some of the fountains have started again. I know the fountains at the Tuileries Garden are running again. You know, if you go to any garden or any space where there's a fountain, there's an even chance that it won't be running. So
Right.
we can't always, at this point in time, we can't always say that the fountain is not running because of coronavirus.
Sure.
But when the lockdown first started, they definitely cut off all the fountains because they found traces of the virus in the water. And I have to say too that this water is not supposed to be consumed.
Right.
So this was the ultimate in, safety precaution, because
Yeah.
people don't drink from these fountains. There
Oh,
are
they're really
different.
taking it seriously. I guess
Yeah.
people splash it on their face and so on.
They could.
When it was the heat wave last year, I was splashing in the Seine water on my face if I got close.
Oh goodness
Well,
gracious.
maybe
You
not
must have
this.
been
No,
desperate.
I got stuck out on a long walk by accident because I took my scooter in to be repaired that day, or went to pick it up and it wasn't ready, and I had nothing to do. And I went for a walk, and it was so hot. It was so hot that my feet from the pavement, the sidewalk, it was making my feet hot.
Oh my.
So I went to those Wallace fountains and poured water all over my feet and my sandals. It was so
Okay.
crazy.
So the Wallace fountains, you can consume the water. That's what they're made for.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. But
That's
this
okay.
one, for sure not.
No,
and
no.
it's not running.
That means we get to have a better look at it, and it'll be
Yes.
quieter. And I haven't been looking at the comments, but if you got questions, don't forget, I'm going to have a look at them in a second. But first, turtles. Not tortoises, I believe. I think it's to do with their
Turtles.
flippers.
Sea turtles.
Yeah.
So this is called the Carpo Fountain because of the sculpture
Carpo. Are we coming in this way?
right here. So you can see at the top there.
Where's the sun? Maybe we should look from the other angle a little
Yes.
bit, because it's kind
Yes.
of... The sun is coming out, Monique. It's
It is,
exciting.
it's fantastic.
Okay.
Okay.
This is
a good-
amazing.
this is a good angle.
This
right
is
here.
good, yep.
All right. So this is actually where one of the Entree to Black Paris walks starts. This is where our walk called Montparnasse, the Artist World, starts.
I bet that one's popular.
It's quite popular. It's out of the 13 walks that we have, I guess I would rank it probably third or fourth.
Okay.
And look, and the sun is shining on the sculpture.
Oh, this is beautiful.
So, so the four corners of the world, les quatre parties du monde. This is the sculpture that's at the top there, and what that represents. These are supposed to be 4 continents, and Africa is facing us. Okay, so
see if I can zoom in even closer. There you go. It might be a bit distorted because it's super zoomed, but there you go. There's Africa.
There's Africa, and then to the right, that's the North America. You can see the Indian headdress on that woman. Okay, and then on the back side, there's Asia and Europe, and you can see that the African woman has a chain. She has
Oh yeah, I do see that. Hang on.
And you can see that the woman that represents North America is standing on the chain.
Wow. So what does that mean?
So Carpo, it's obviously a reference to slavery.
And when you say Carpo, is that the name of the person that did it?
Yes, the artist.
Yep.
And so there is you can see this in the Musée d'Orsay.
Right.
Okay, so if you go into the Musée d'Orsay and you go straight to the back, down the main, hallway, I was going to say thoroughfare, but it's not a street. But there's a big bronze statue that is this, and you can see it much better because you can get much closer up to it.
Maybe I can stand on this
Okay.
and get a closer shot because I never noticed that chain there before. Oh, okay. Let's see if you can see this, folks. I hope you can see at home. I'm holding up as high as I can. It's quite... it's kind of almost hidden, like subtle. Oh! That just made Catherine Barnett cry, by the way.
Oh, did it?
That's what she wrote.
Well, the shackle is quite visible, but you have to know what it is. You won't register what this is unless you know the symbolism
Sure.
of the art.
But even the foot standing on it from the north, was it the North America?
Uh-huh.
That's hard to even see, especially at your height, Monique.
That's true.
Because we're down here now. But I mean, yeah, it's powerful but hidden too.
Yeah.
Which I assume is purpose.
I don't know if that part is purposeful. It really depends on your perspective. So if that were on the ground, we could see it very easily.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I was going to say too that the bust of the African woman is at the Petit Palais.
Okay.
And that you can get really up close to.
Right. At the Petit Palais inside?
Yes.
Okay. And I noticed at the front of the Musée d'Orsay they also have women from continents at the very front.
Yes.
More than 4. I think it's more like 6.
Yes.
6 or 7.
And there is an African there as well, and she's quite regal.
Yeah, that's right. And for people wondering where we are again, or people who are just tuning in now, we've come basically as far as you can see is where we've walked. And Monique, 60 people are watching.
Yay! All right.
Oh goodness.
Watch out.
Okay, I shouldn't have taken my eye off the ball for a second. Now, okay, and let's do a loop so we can look, maybe for a bit of perspective.
Okay.
I saw more comments coming in, but I was focusing. Oh dear, there's always one, isn't there?
Yeah, always.
And is there relevance for the animals and the?
Now that part, I don't know.
It's an amazing, especially in this light too. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's the shot. We need your husband to take a picture. But I'm sure he's taken pictures of this before. Oh no, I can't walk around. Okay, I'll just get it from this angle, just to give the whole picture. Mm-hmm. It's very powerful. Yeah. And is that the bottom of the chain there under her foot?
Yes, that's the open shackle.
Wow. Extremely dynamic. Sea turtle, beautiful fountains. A lot of comments coming in. This says, Jane says, it seems unfair that they have Native Americans standing on the chain since so many of them were actually faced with genocide.
This is true, and that's a comment that I've gotten before. And what I can say about that is, if the sculptor really wanted to portray a white American standing on the chain, that person would not be distinguishable from the person who represents Europe.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he was trying to say that Native Americans were the slavers, the enslavers. What I think he was trying to represent in a way that everybody could understand was that this was North America.
Yeah, I see. That makes sense. This way?
Yes, so we're going to go out and we're going to come to the edge of the 6th and across the street there is the 14th.
And then we're going that way, is that right?
Yes.
Now is a good chance, I think, because I said that when there's a boring part of road, and this bit is pretty boring, I'm going to take the chance to mention to mention that there's a link. Okay, there's 2 links below, folks. First is Entrée Black Paris, or Paris, you might say, the walking tour. So if you come to Paris one day and you want to do a similar tour, or maybe, I don't think it's the exact same tour you're doing, maybe this is part of several ones,
yeah,
right?
this is part of several.
So there's a link there. Save it. Follow them on Facebook. You guys already know how to do all that stuff.
Yes.
But also, can we cross? It was just green. Can we do it? Yes. Also, there's a link to the fundraiser that we're doing, and I'm not sure if you've put 2 and 2 together, but Monique runs the Wells International Foundation. That is can you say the target of the charity? That sounds violent almost. It's the destination.
That is being supported by...
You've done this longer than me. So, with that in mind, there's a link below, and what I want you to do is go to that link and buy a raffle ticket, because the prices were pretty good.
They are fantastic.
There's no denying it, guys. Go to that link, buy a ticket for $10, and it supports Monique's charity,
yes.
Wells International. All the links are there. We're not going to go on about it, but have you looked at...
Oh, it's just, I'm just overcome.
It's flying.
It is flying.
And I think we're going to stop here, but I want you guys to do it while we're talking, because it's just like boop, 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 done.
Yeah.
And the last I checked, oh, thank you, Jane, it's 7,750. Woo!
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And I'm convinced we can get to 8,000 by the end of the walk. So you 56 people know what to do. Buy 2 tickets. It doubles your chances to win. So we'll talk about that more, but the links are there. I don't need to go on about it. I've been doing it for a couple of days. But this is Monique, who runs the charity, and she'll answer any of your questions about it. But we're actually talking about an intro to Black Paris now. So I'll turn the camera around.
Okay. So right here is the Closerie des Lilas. And I believe you mentioned to me that you were asking people to read Giovanni's room.
That's exactly right, yes.
So,
the book club. Thanks for the shout out in return. The Eiffel Tower Book Club, free to join. Good books every month.
Yes. So the Closerie, La Closerie des Lilas, is in one of the scenes.
This?
Yes.
I've never been here. Can we get a closer look?
Sure.
I assumed that we'd be looking at the statue.
No.
Forget the statue.
Forget the statue.
Okay. No, I've only read the first chapter. He writes brilliantly well. It makes me never want to write another sentence. James Baldwin. Are we going to talk about James Baldwin on this walk?
We can talk about James Baldwin, and we will talk about James Baldwin because James Baldwin is an integral part of the story of the artist that we're going to be talking about, whose name is Buford Delaney.
Buford Delaney. Guys, you should Google that now. In fact, you shouldn't, because we're going to be telling you about it. Well, I'm not. Monique is, but I've read about this place and heard about it. Is it also in like a Hemingway book or something?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah? So this is where Hemingway wrote, what did he write here? The Sun Also Rises. Okay.
And so it's mentioned in Giovanni's room too?
Yes.
I had no idea it was here. And they've got pictures on the wall. Do you know who the pictures are?
No, I don't know who the pictures are. But
Maybe
if you go inside, there are little plaques that for famous people who frequented this place.
Yeah.
So if you go in there, you know, you can see those around the barn. But the Closerie is in one of the scenes at Giovanni's room, and the place where I believe we're going to end up today is also.
Oh, brilliant!
Giovanni.
I don't think I've read yet this bit. I'm just going to look at the menu
Okay.
to see what we're getting ourselves into here. That's fairly reasonable, I would say. You look at the main course, entrecôte for 34, burger for 22. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a bit high
It is. I mean, when I say reasonable, I mean for what
this is.
it is. Because sometimes you go to the Ritz, and you're gonna be seeing maybe reasonable prices for 5-star hotels, but
Right.
not for
Right.
not for I don't know, normal people in Paris. Maybe, I guess. What about a beer or a Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola, €7. Well, there's the clue, isn't it? and it's called La Closerie de
Lila.
Lila.
De Lila.
Have you been in here? Do you recommend it?
I don't frequent the Closerie de Lila. I have been in here. I have eaten here. There have been like parties in here, but this is not a place where your average French person is going to come and eat.
You can hardly find it with all this greenery.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they're growing in the hot rooms or hot tubs or whatever you call
The
it.
hot tubs.
I don't know what you said.
Hot houses.
Okay, so this is featured in Giovanni's room, but not in chapter 1.
Right.
Because in chapter 1 he's down south, I think. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So you'll know when you're getting ready to read about the Closerie de Lila because Giovanni, not Giovanni.
Don't spoil the
David.
plot.
No, I won't.
Okay.
But David is David's fiance is coming to Paris, and he is sort of dreading it.
Okay.
And so he is walking around Montparnasse, and he will come here, and then he will end up down the street.
It's so nice to read a book when you know the place, or you've seen the place.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I'm going to peek over the thing again.
Okay.
A few people are saying it's a great restaurant, having eaten there a few times. Great brunch. And Deborah writes in large letters an in-joke that I'll explain as we walk, but she wrote, Le Maurice for expensive drinks. Are we going to keep walking?
Yes.
Because I accidentally went there on kind of the first date I ever had with my now wife.
Really?
Yeah, accidentally, because I didn't,
Oh, you didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
I think a fly just went in my throat and I'm hesitant to cough because I don't want to scare everybody.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Okay, just go over there.
Okay, I'm going to
by
here.
yourself.
You can hold it here. So you just hold it tight and you walk and talk to
Okay.
the folks at home. Guys, you're with Monique. I'm going to catch up. I'm literally just going to cough in the corner.
Oh, okay. So I've never held this kind of a device before, but it looks like it's working okay. So we are in Montparnasse now. We are walking down the Boulevard du Montparnasse. And this is, and here he comes, crossing over. There he is.
What did you tell him? What did you tell
So I'm
him?
just saying that we're on the Boulevard du Montparnasse.
You're a natural.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing tours for a long time.
Even a natural with this though.
Oh, well, you know.
Yeah. It's,
Steady hands, steady hands.
not even. Look, if I do that, it still kind of stays steady.
That's really cool.
But you're getting reviews in as a podcaster.
Wonderful. So,
Just a little architecture pause there.
yeah.
Isn't it delightful?
So you mentioned architecture, very good, because one of the things that's important about Montparnasse is that the reason that we call the walk Montparnasse the artist world is because so many artists around the turn of the century flocked to this area. And the reason that they came was because at the Closerie de Lila, where we just left, there were some very wealthy people who came down here and they hung out there and they wanted to hear poetry and they wanted to see artwork, and they were very generous with artists. And so artists learned that this was a place where if they could get the attention of some wealthy people, they could potentially be sponsored or whatever.
Right.
And so artists started to flock to this area. And the reason that artists could live in this area was because it was dirt cheap. It was a slum, literally. Buildings were falling down. And this is one of the reasons why cafes were so important in Paris, not only for artists, but also for writers, because you were living in very, very poor conditions. And so in order to get anything done, you needed to go to a place where there was going to be reasonable light and heat. And so that's why when people would come to Paris, it would be like, okay, what's going to be my cafe?
Interesting. So basically, they just didn't want to be in their house no matter what.
Right.
They needed, not to mention there was coffee as well.
Yes.
Although I always wondered, like, to pay for coffees when you're struggling.
Well, you didn't have to buy and buy and buy. That's an American concept. You could buy one cup of coffee and be there all day, literally.
Interesting. But it's not, they kind of frown on that today in Paris.
Yep.
A little bit more than maybe, and the price of a coffee can be super expensive
It can
here.
be, depending on where you're buying.
We just saw a €7 Coca-Cola.
Exactly.
That's obscene. That's the test. That's kind of the litmus test for me for a restaurant, how much a Coke is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the same everywhere.
Exactly.
You know, you could be getting fantastic cooking. Oh no, my throat. Oh goodness. Okay. Sorry.
Coughing again?
I'm all right. No, I'm okay. Okay.
I think Tom has abandoned us.
Oh, someone did ask. Someone saw him in the background. Deborah likes writing in a cafe, she says.
Yeah.
There you go. Do you do some writing in cafes?
Actually, no. I do my writing at home. I don't actually spend a lot of time in cafes. I'm so busy doing so many things. But it is a wonderful place to do that.
Look at that car. Wow.
Oh, cool.
I'm not even a car guy and I like that car. Okay. So we cross. It's so empty.
Yep.
Look at the big empty boulevards, everybody. But maybe that is a Sunday thing, but it's not usually ever this empty.
Yeah, we got the light now.
Here we go.
So artists and a lot of writers. I mean, we talked about Hemingway a minute ago. This Montparnasse is also the area where just before the stock market crash, Americans flocked to Paris and they hung out down.
So what years are we talking about here?
So the stock market crashed in 1929, so we're talking about the 20s. And we're talking about, if you're familiar with the Gertrude Stein's Lost Generation.
Sure.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
I saw her house the other day, or at least the plaque out the front, but I just stumbled upon it. And I saw, when I was doing a little bit of research for this walk, I saw that on, who was it? There's a plaque on Rue Monsieur Le Prince or something.
For Richard Wright.
Richard Wright. And when I was scooting to meet you, I went down that street by chance.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa, all my worlds are colliding. It was amazing.
Fab.
Yeah, I'm off on a tangent though. So we were on
okay.
Lost Generation, the 20s, late 20s and beyond.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you a question actually. So a lot of Americans and African Americans came to Paris then, right?
Yes.
Is it the same now for African Americans coming to Paris seeking creative lives and so on?
Well, I would not say that it's quite the same. First of all, we have our first wave of African Americans coming to Paris, like a big wave, after the First World War, so in between the two world wars. Why is that? That's because, and there are several reasons, but the primary reason is because during the First World War, African American soldiers fought with the French. Remember that the army was segregated.
Okay.
So, and you wouldn't remember, you're not American.
It was before my time a little bit as
Right.
well.
Right.
But I can say that I remember because I've read about this a little bit.
Okay. So, so the army was segregated, and the French desperately needed troops. And so the U.S. government said, well, we'll give our African American troops over to you.
Wow.
And the French accepted and embraced these men, and the African American soldiers fought valiantly. They were rewarded for their bravery, for their service. They were given medals, etc. This was something that they could have never, ever, ever dreamed of.
Wow.
In the United States. And so when the war was over, they went back and they told everybody, oh God, we were just so well accepted there, and this and that and the other.
Wow.
And I will also say that when they returned, there was what was called the Red Summer, and that was when there was a rash. There were always lynchings in the United States, but they became particularly numerous after the First World War because white Americans felt that they needed to put these black men back in their place. Okay?
Right.
So this is even creating a bigger contrast in the acceptance and freedom that African Americans had in France compared to what they experienced on their home soil.
And just for a sec, was it just France that they came to fight with, or was it around Europe? Do you know? Or
No, it was France.
Wow. And how did they feel it? I mean, or what was the sort of consensus about being sent to fight in France? Was it like, oh, we got an opportunity to be soldiers?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We can show
Wow.
that we are equal. We are talented. We are everything you are. Accept us as human beings.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. Let's go across here. So
I got chills.
yeah, I still get those thinking about it myself, especially given everything that's going on in the U.S. today.
Absolutely.
Let's stop here.
That's pretty eye-catching.
Yeah, this is a fantastic building.
What is this?
This is it's a building. You can see the long, narrow windows. When you see long, narrow windows like that, that means that this space was created for artists.
Ah, to
Okay.
get some light in.
So you can get light in, and ideally, those windows would face north because the light during the course of the day varies the least if you have a northern exposure. So if you were lucky enough to have a studio, you would want your studio to have windows that face north because the light that is shining on whatever it is that you're working on is the most steady.
Right.
Okay, so on this side, that's where Man Ray lived.
I saw weirdly on the back of the Luxembourg Gardens there was a sign for Man Ray.
Yes, they're going to be, whenever they can open again, they're going to be doing an exhibit of Man Ray's work.
Wow, let's get a look from front on. So Man Ray, is there a plaque?
No,
You say plaque, right?
yeah, we say plaque.
You're from Houston?
I'm from Houston.
Houston. Anyone in Houston? They're probably asleep now in
Yeah.
Houston. Okay, look, yeah, and you can see quite arty things going on. And Deborah wants to know what street we're on. I can't remember.
Yes, this is Campagne Première.
Okay, and I'll show a sign as we walk past on the other
This
end.
one there.
Yeah, we'll get it as we go past it. But what impressive doors as well, mind you.
Yeah, so it's all faced with tile.
This is very different for Paris. You don't see many buildings like this.
Exactly.
And so I assume that is north, or is that just how they behind us? I mean,
So actually, let's see.
I guess if Luxembourg was facing that way, this must be west. They must be west facing. Or?
Yeah, north is this way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Montparnasse Tower, I see it.
Yeah.
Jim McPherson says
a
it.
joke about the Montparnasse Tower.
I probably
You know the
do, but not everybody at home, perhaps.
joke? Okay, so
Hang on, unless you made it up. Is
no,
it
I
an
didn't
original?
make it up. No, the joke about the Montparnasse Tower is, and it goes back to this whole story of architecture and this being a slum, and I'll get back to that. But the joke is that you can go up to the top of the Montparnasse Tower. There is an observation deck up there. There's also a very nice restaurant up there. But they say that the view from the Montparnasse Tower, the top of the Montparnasse Tower, is the best in all of Paris because it's the only place that you cannot see the Montparnasse Tower. And you can like just show it from here.
I don't find it hugely ugly.
Well,
You know, like,
It's just,
we're talking about this one, of course,
yeah.
but people hate it. I don't feel the hate for it, you know? Here's the name of the street, though, for people wanting to do the sort of street walk with us. Campagne Première is the phonetic
Yeah.
Australian pronunciation. Campagne Première. There you go. And someone did just say good day, so I think we have Australians in the house.
All right.
Which makes sense time-wise.
We'll go this way. Walk across the-
Okay, people liked your joke. We're getting feedback on the joke.
All right.
Montparnasse. Yeah, it doesn't really fit in, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's just, it's one of just a couple, maybe 3 buildings that are, at the time, were quite modern.
Right.
Now they're passé, you know.
Yeah.
But
It's so empty.
yeah, it is.
Wow.
This is lovely. So, in the 60s, truly, this area was so dilapidated, and the city finally decided that they needed to refurbish, but they did not do it in an artistically, or not well, architecturally cohesive way.
Do you mind if I interrupt you for 2 seconds? Because this is an example, guys, at home of what Paris looks like. I get a lot of, you must as well.
Yeah.
The way that they put the chairs quite far apart.
Yeah.
And usually these chairs, I've never been here before, but maybe they're not usually here. Maybe they're
No,
more.
they're usually not here.
So that's how this, once and for all, this is what Paris looks like. This kind of spread out social distancing.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Yeah. I will say also that sometimes even on narrow streets, they will actually take up parking spaces and give them to restaurants.
It's kind of
now.
cool, actually.
It is.
Maybe the cars are done for, but you never see. It doesn't make sense. It's so foreign as a concept to see Paris cafes.
Yeah.
Like you'd almost, no one can put it. Once someone put a cigarette out inadvertently on my knee.
Oh no.
Yeah, but that couldn't even happen here. Look at that. How are you gonna get me?
I know.
So different. Sorry, I interrupted you.
It's okay.
You're talking about the 60s and dilapidated.
Yeah, so they started to revamp. They started to tear down and reconstruct Montparnasse. And so that's why the architecture is so haphazard. And a lot of the architecture here is just very bland. You know, it was an urban renewal of sorts. And Buford Delaney lived in this area. So I want to talk,
I hinted to people on Instagram they should look up Buford Delaney.
Yeah.
Because I knew you'd be talking about him. And I Wikipedia'd him this morning and saw your name pop up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Look at this beautiful plant.
We're going back to the plants. It's the Eiffel Tower botany. What we got, everybody?
I don't know what it is, but it's beautiful.
Isn't it? You meant this one, right?
Yeah.
Here's me jumping in. This one's too. Is this jasmine? Oh, I don't know.
No, it's not jasmine.
No.
No, I've never seen this in bloom like this. So.
It's butterfly bush. That's what Jim says.
Oh, okay.
Jim might know.
He might.
Yeah.
So, the spring with everybody gone.
Pictures.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you a picture of Buford.
So just so you know, when I film forward like this, the camera doesn't work so well. So if you need to talk, we'll always do it like that. But if we need to show, I'll do it like this.
Okay. So these are our photographs of Buford Delaney.
There you go with the flowers.
Yep. So this is Buford in 1953, just a few weeks before he set sail for France. And this is Buford in 1972, I believe, either 72 or 73. This photograph was taken by an African-American photographer who now lives in Amsterdam. His name is Errol Sawyer. He's brilliant. This photograph was taken by Carl Van Vechten, who was a white man who was very active during the Harlem Renaissance. He was somebody who supported a lot of black writers and artists and everything. Okay, so Buford's Montparnasse is another separate walk that we do. It's in the same general area. And Buford Delaney is the reason that I founded, the short reason that I founded the Wells International Foundation. Because we...
Let's stand with the lovely trees behind us. Or should we keep walking?
Oh, we can keep walking. It's fine. You wanna?
No, just think you look really nice.
It is beautiful.
So who's this Buford? I never heard of him.
Well, a lot of people haven't, but we're working to change that. So Buford Delaney was, he was an African-American man. He was born in Knoxville, Tennessee in 1901. He was an artist. He showed prowess very early, even as a young teen. And growing up in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is the South, his talent was recognized by people at the school that he attended, and he was taken to the studio of one of the most prominent at the time artists, painters in Knoxville, a white man named Lloyd Branson, who was very much, of the Southern mentality, Confederacy, kind of guy. But Buford's talent could not be denied. He took Buford in as he mentored him. He taught him everything he knew. And when Buford was in his early 20s, he sent Buford to Boston for professional training. He gathered money, he gave him introductions, and Buford went to Boston. And he was there from 1923 to 1929 when he moved to New York. And he spent several years in New York. And in 1953, he left New York to come to Paris, and this is where he died. He died here in 1979. He suffered mental illness that became worse and worse as his life progressed. He was supposed to have been buried in Montparnasse Cemetery, we're standing at the corner of the Montparnasse Cemetery.
Is that what this is?
Yes, and we're going to go in there.
Okay,
in
right.
a minute. James Baldwin was a very dear friend of Buford, and Buford actually met James Baldwin, or I should say James Baldwin met Buford when James Baldwin was only 16 years old, and this was in New York. Buford was living in Greenwich Village, and Buford was the first black man that Baldwin met who showed Baldwin that a black man could actually make a living as an artist, and that inspired him. And they became fast friends. They were friends for the rest of their lives.
It was kind of a pupil master.
Exactly.
I think I read a quote from James Baldwin about that.
Yeah.
Although he said it was more than that.
Yes,
Yeah.
He was definitely more than that. He was like a father figure. And when Buford came to Paris, Baldwin was already here. Baldwin came here in 1948.
So Baldwin did the move first.
Baldwin moved first.
Gotcha.
And when Buford arrived here, Baldwin sort of brought him into his entourage. And so then, they were just very, very fast friends. They were the closest of friends. I just can't emphasize enough how important the relationship was for both of them. And so James Baldwin would have had Buford Delaney buried in Montparnasse had he been here and had he had the funds to do so. But when Buford died, he was ill. Baldwin was ill. He was in the south of France, in Saint-Paul-de-Vence. He could not even make the funeral, and he never forgave himself for that. But we'll talk a lot more about Buford. We'll talk about other things as well. But the reason that I founded the Wells International Foundation was to raise the money to do an art exhibition to honor Buford Delaney. And we can talk more.
We can walk and talk. And I've seen, I was sharing a few of Buford's, or Delaney's, I suppose you'd say, Delaney's pictures on Instagram. You'd say modernist?
Most definitely. Oops. Most definitely. He started to experiment with abstract expressionism when he was in New York, and that part of his artistic repertoire flourished when he moved to Paris, but he always continued to do figurative painting, and he was a master portraitist, starting with Boston when he was actually learning his craft. He was trying to be very exact. He was trying to make exact replicates of the people who he was doing portraits of. But even when he went to New York, he started to experiment more with ideas related to abstraction. And when you see some of his later portraits that he did in Paris, some of them you can barely recognize the person.
It sounds like when I do a portrait, actually, but it's accidental.
It's accidental. No, for him, the more that he embraced abstract expressionism, the more he felt that even in portraiture, he was not trying to replicate the likeness. He was trying to find the essence of the person.
Wow.
And as he interpreted that person, that's what he put down on the canvas. And, people who sat for him would even say, but that really doesn't look like me. He said, but that's how I see you.
Interesting. I want to ask you a question in a second about what drew you to Delaney. Shall we say Buford or Delaney when we're using one word?
I call him Buford because that's what he liked to be called. There are people who will say, well, you're disrespecting him by using his first name. So if you want to call him Delaney, that's fine. But Buford had a brother named Joseph who was also an artist.
I see. So I'll just use the full thing and never get it wrong. But I wanted to read a comment before I get to my question for you. It's from Shelley Bradford Bell.
Oh, Shelley!
I thought you might recognize the name because she says, Monique, missing you and Tom. It's 1 a.m. in San Francisco, but I had to stay up to watch you. Miss you guys so much.
Oh, we miss you too.
Did I get the accent right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, gosh.
Is this the entrance to the cemetery?
It's here.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. So someone's watching at 1 o'clock in San Francisco.
Wow.
Is anyone watching later in the night than Shelley is? Do we still have our Virginia 3 a.m.? Surely not. That would be. I mean, if you're awake at 3, maybe you stay till 4.
Well, maybe.
Who can beat 1 a.m.? Who can beat it? Histoire de Paris, cimetière de Montparnasse. Du Montparnasse. My pronunciation. Goodness me.
That's all right. We get you.
After you. 3 a.m. in Chicago, says Jim. Did you stay up to watch us, Jim? That's incredible.
It is.
Wow. Okay.
All right. We're going to stop here and then we're going to go down that.
So first, just to give everyone the bearings, this is 4. Oh, Deborah's still watching in Virginia at 4:04.
Woo!
Wow, that's at
You're
2 a.m. in
champ.
Canada. You guys are wonderful. Okay, so this is the Montparnasse Cemetery, which I've touched on very briefly before in past episodes. I've been guilty of being in the right bank a lot,
Okay.
as I live in Montmartre as well. But
Okay.
now I'm living on the same side of the river as you. I'm showing a lot more of this city. But it's a smaller cemetery
Yes.
than the Père
The
Lachaise,
Père
for
Lachaise,
example.
but this is the second largest. And we're going to see a very famous, probably the most famous tombstone in here. And then we're going to just back up a little bit and go down that main thoroughfare. This is the
Oh.
grave of Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir.
And it looks to me, Monique, that people smooch it for good luck.
Yes.
Is that right? Is that smooches or have they
Yes,
drawn it on?
it's smooches.
What do we think about that? It's a bit disgusting. Especially now. I'm not sure about this, everybody. Here's a closer look in case you can't see, but I've never seen this before.
Yeah. So these are two of the most famous, French sort of like philosopher, existentialist people of the modern day. You can see the death dates, birth dates, and death dates. So these were contemporaries of Buford. I don't know that he actually met them, but certainly Sartre and de Beauvoir were very well acquainted with Richard Wright.
Right.
Both of them met him in New York, and when Wright moved here, he was a part of their circle and they a part of his. So, yeah, this is the big one.
The flowers are a bit uninspiring.
Well,
I mean-
who knows how long it's been there?
But still, I mean, some of them, like this one, at least they have a nice little. But this, I've got a theory about this. I'm interested in your thoughts on it. I know that people put metro tickets on Serge Gainsbourg because he wrote a song. He's in the cemetery too. Are we going this way or back?
We're going back.
So he wrote a song about being a ticket puncher on a metro.
Yeah.
Poinçonneur de Lilas, it's called. And so people leave metro tickets on his grave as a little sort of thing. But people also do it on other graves, like that one.
Yeah, and I don't know why.
No, and someone once commented, like, it's like saying, thanks for taking me on, the ride of your life or something like that.
Really?
But I also wonder if maybe they just didn't get it and they, I don't know.
I don't know either. It's something that every time I see one of those, I think I need to look that up.
Yeah.
And then I promptly forget about it.
We could ask people at home if they know, but it's 3 a.m. for a lot of them. They're probably very tired.
Yeah.
4 a.m. in Virginia.
This is just wild. I'm honored.
One day, Monique, we'll do a walk at 9 p.m. rather than 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And it will go crazy.
Yeah.
Because as it happens, a lot of the people that listen to my show are in the States.
Okay.
But I know a lot are in Australia too, but it tends to be a lot more people watch the nighttime ones. But we did the daytime one today.
Well, summertime would definitely be the time.
Well, we'll have to
do
come
a
up with
nighttime
something
one.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so like I said, this cemetery was where James Baldwin would have had Buford Delaney buried, but he was cash poor and ill.
Who both?
Baldwin would have had Buford Delaney buried here.
Yeah.
Were he able to?
Gotcha.
But what happened was that Buford was actually buried in a pauper's grave in a cemetery outside of Paris. It's part of the Paris cemetery system. but it's outside of Paris in a town called Thiais. It's spelled T-H-A, let's see, how is it spelled? Thiais, Thiais Cemetery. And he was in a
Hope his grave is in unmarked or...
unmarked
Yeah.
grave. And I was writing, this is years ago, it was 2009. I was writing an article about African American grave sites in and around Paris, and I wanted to include Buford's grave, not because I knew anything about him, but because he was a friend of James Baldwin. And I went out there, I went out to Thiais Cemetery, and I inquired, you know, at the office, was Buford Delaney still buried at Thiais Cemetery? And when I first was asked, when I was first asked, or told rather, where he was buried, that question came to me. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Is he still there? Why wouldn't he be there? And they said, well, don't you know that in France, you don't keep your grave forever unless you keep paying for it.
Right,
and
right.
This was shocking to me. And they said, well, you know, he might not be there anymore, so could you inquire? And I went, and he was there, and I was very grateful, and they told me, you know, where to go, how to get there. And this is my first experience with any French cemetery. So the way that the cemeteries work is they have all of these divisions, and they have rows, and they have plot numbers. Well, the thing is, they don't tell you what is row 1,
Right.
and they don't tell you which one is plot 1.
Yeah.
So if you can find the division, you still have to figure all of that out.
Right.
And so I come to this division, I'm gonna go this way, and I didn't know what to do, but also it looked like it was half empty.
Oh my.
No one had told me that the grave was unmarked.
Oh wow.
So I have these coordinates, you know.
It's like a Sudoku puzzle or something, trying
Yeah.
to figure that out. Yeah.
I finally, first of all, my heart was like in my throat because I couldn't believe that this man was in this space.
Well, what did the cemetery look like?
The cemetery has many divisions that are absolutely splendid.
Okay.
And it has other divisions where it looks like nobody's there.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, just, even the stones that were there were so poorly kept. And this was just totally out of my realm of experience. So, and the weeds were so high. They were up to my knees. And I finally, you know, I'm like, I'm never gonna figure this out. So some guards were walking. I said, please, you know, I don't know how your cemetery works. I need help. Can you identify for me where this particular tomb is? And they individually walked it off. They explained to me, this is row 1.
Yeah.
He was in row 2. They walked it off, and they came to a space with no stone, but a little ceramic flower arrangement. And they said, this is it. So I took pictures of it, and I went back and I told these people who had given me this information, these are the friends of Buford Delaney, because I started a French nonprofit called Les Amis de Buford Delaney to place a stone at Buford's grave. So I went back to the friends who had given me this initial information, and they were like, oh my God, he's still there. I said, yes, but they have told me that he is going to be exhumed at the end of this year. I'm there in September.
Okay, wow. What
And-
timing?
Yeah, it was the first of a long string of miracles in my story about Buford Delaney. So they were like, oh, he's still there, so can we pay the money to keep the grave intact? Now, mind you, I'm the only person in Paris.
Yeah.
These friends are in the US or in the UK. And I'm gonna go that way. So now, and they started telling me all these stories about why they love Buford Delaney so much, and so I'm starting to get into all of that.
So this time you're not an expert on Buford Delaney.
No,
you
not at
you
all.
were more about the connection to James Baldwin.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the more I heard from them, and the more I read about him, I was like, okay, I can do my bit for the African American experience. You know, I can preserve this man's grave. This will be part of history. And so I started to blog about him. And I got permission from the cemetery system to pay the money because I'm not family. None of these people is family.
Yeah.
And they kept saying that, you're not family, you're not family, you're not. Like, okay, I get it.
Why didn't they want? They don't care about money.
No,
What?
no.
Surely that.
So that's like another thing that wasn't computing.
Yeah.
Because in the American mind, if you got money,
Sure.
you can do anything.
If you got the right personality, as I sometimes say, yeah.
Yeah. They were like, no, you're not family. So I had to petition, and the way that I got them to pay attention is that I told them that Buford Delaney was an artist.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting to me. So you say, hang on, we got an artist here, and they go, hang on a second.
Yeah. And the French government owns his work.
Okay.
So that was like, oh, let me pay attention. And they allowed me exceptionally to pay to keep the grave intact. And so there's it's like a lease, and every so often you have to repay.
Right.
So when I was able to do that, the friends were so excited that they wanted to place a stone.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, can you find out for us how much it'll cost and all of this? So I'm doing all this now. Now I'm like all in, you know?
Yeah, well, I know.
And I found out it was going to be it was close to just over 7,000 euros.
Right.
And
when you say stone, you mean tombstone, not just like some rock.
Right, a tombstone. And a full-length tombstone.
Right, kind of like this sort of thing.
Yes.
Yep.
So then I started the French nonprofit Les Amis de Buford Delaney to raise the money for the stone. And when we laid the stone, which was almost a year later, we had a reception at the Hotel Talleyrand, which is where the American consulate used to be. And the U.S. Embassy held that for us, and we got the support of the embassy in raising the money and everything. And then I thought, okay, this is well done. This man's grave has been preserved. Beautiful stone, very simple, but quite beautiful, and it will last. So it wasn't gonna crumble.
Sure.
Like the other ones that were in there. And I felt really good. And I said, okay, now I can go on to something else.
I'm just gonna grab a drink of water.
Okay.
From that fly from half an hour ago. Keep telling the story. I'm coming right back. Don't
Okay.
kill me, it's embarrassing.
Okay. So
Drink this water?
yeah. So that's the exit of the cemetery we're going to right now. All right.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So
Delicious water.
Paris water is very good.
It is.
It is. It's very
It's
good.
refreshing. It had like 4 years to my life, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? And then, by the way, I see your comments. I'm going to get to them. I'm going to keep hearing the story from Monique first.
Yeah.
So the stone was there. It's
So-
going to last.
Yeah. And I said, okay, so I'm gonna stop blogging. I'm gonna go on to do something else. We're gonna go catty corner that way.
Okay.
And I stopped for about 3 months. But during those 3 months, something was nagging at me. And I said, I just couldn't stop. I had to continue. There was something more that I was being called to do. And so then I really thought, okay, so how else can I honor this man whose story is just so poignant? And so many people loved him. I wanted to do something else. I continued to blog, and I was exhausting what I could find out about his life, so I turned to his art. I'm not an art person. And I just very sort of academically, I decided that I would look up where one could find Buford Delaney's art. So is it on display in museums? Is it at galleries? Where is it? Where can you go to see it? And when I started down that track, let's go this way, I came across a photograph of one of his abstract expressionist paintings called Composition 16.
Composition 16.
Yes. I don't know why it has been given that name. I don't know if he named it that or if somebody else did. But it was this absolutely magnificent abstract expressionist painting, predominantly yellow, but flecks of like blue and red. And I literally, in looking at this image, felt like somebody had reached into my chest and grabbed my heart.
Wow. We got to look at this picture. Everyone at home, look at Composition 16, was it? You can do it on Google as we walk. We're at a red light. They can Google it.
They can Google it. I was overcome, literally. And I thought, all of these years I've been talking about Buford Delaney and I've been writing about him, and I have missed the point entirely. And so then I really started to learn. I started all over. I started to look at his work and look at his philosophy of painting. And it's just led to so many things. So where we're going right now, you can see this bus stop. It says Jean Zay.
Yeah, I noticed the street was called Jean Zay as well.
Yes. So we're going to an elementary school called Jean Zay.
Jean Zay. It's like sort of a backwards Jay-Z or something.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Can I briefly look through the comments? Because
Sure.
there's been so many coming in.
Go ahead.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
People are loving your story though, I must say.
Oh, great.
Captivating, says Jenny. And how serendipitous it is that you're in the right place and the right time to help with everything.
Yes.
Jen is loving the walk. We're literally in her, could be his, backyard. And we actually walked by her apartment on Campagne Premiere. I should have stuck my head out the window to say hello.
Oh.
That would have been the first. I wish you did.
Oh, wow.
Too bad. Okay, too many comments. Fascinating. Lots of people saying how much they like the story, and they love the composition 16. Someone said it's in MoMA.
Yep.
MoMA, is that a museum of modern art? Art?
Yes.
In America?
Yes. In New York City.
Oh, that's the big one, isn't it?
Yeah. Watch out for that.
What, this? Why did you point it out, Monique?
Because I didn't want you to step
Oh,
in it.
okay. Though I think a lot of people have this idea that Paris is totally overrun with dog.
It's
Whatever
much better now.
Yeah, I've heard that it used to be terrible.
Oh God, when I first moved here, you had to look down.
Really?
You had to spend at least as much time looking down as looking up.
I guess you never would have seen the architectural brilliance of Paris 30 years ago because you're always looking at the ground.
Exactly.
Although once you've messed up, for want of a better euphemism, then it doesn't matter anymore. Then you can just start walking.
That's
And
true.
once you're in, you're all in.
That's true. So this is Jean Zay Elementary School, and you can see the social distance market.
Is this for the kids or the parents to pick them up? Do you know? Probably both. Yeah. Paris is changing. This is such a historic time for Paris right now. It's so interesting.
It really is.
Okay. So what's this then?
So this is Jean Zay Elementary School, and there is a program in Paris. It's an after-school program called TAP, and the kids are able to, after they get out of school, they're able to go to this little room and they can draw and they can, do various things. They can do homework if they want. And we organized, when I say we, the Wells International Foundation, organized a program with this school and a school in Buford's hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee, where children from 3rd to 5th grade could exchange video. They met like monthly on video calls.
Just so I know, 3rd to 5th grade, that's little kids?
Yeah.
That's like 10 years oldish?
Yeah.
Yep.
10 is the oldest.
Right.
10 to 11,
Okay.
the oldest. And they came together to celebrate Buford's life and art.
Cool.
And this went on for 2 years.
So the kids in Knoxville, was it, and here?
Yeah.
Back and forth thing.
Yep. On
I
video.
love it.
And in October 2018, the children from Knoxville came here to meet their video pals. And it was all based on Buford's life and art. So we started out saying Buford traveled from the United States to France, and the kids all did, they did art of like how the Knoxville kids were like, well, if we were going to go to Paris, we'd have to take a plane, or we could take a ship, and it would take this long, and it's this many miles, and all of that. And the reason that we actually chose this school, and this is another serendipitous thing, it's another Buford Delaney miracle, is because Buford's studio was not a 5-minute walk from this address.
Oh, I love it.
The last studio that he had in Paris was not 5 minutes walk from here.
So the kids, when they came over here in 2018, was this a while after, or was this, how old
We
were they?
started in 2017, they came in 2018.
So this was all through the Wells International Foundation.
Yeah.
And as I think Deborah just said, the arts are so very essential for children and youth.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree as well. And this, reading through the pages of the Wells International Foundation is what inspired me to select you as it's not the target.
He's supporting us.
No, I'm not. We are Paris fans. So if people are tuning into this video, the link below is raising money to make more stuff like that happen. I know you do loads of different things,
Yeah.
but there's a particularly poignant example of the kind of stuff that Monique does. And if you already bought one of those raffles, great prizes.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, they're really good prizes. You buy another ticket. You can enter twice.
Yeah.
There's no rules against that. And then
That's
we're
right.
drawing the tickets on Monday. And someone needs to do a little check where we're up to. Have we made it to 8,000?
Yeah, tell us.
I'm
tell
not
us.
ashamed to pressure you
Tell
guys.
us, tell us.
But buy another ticket.
This
because
is so fantastic.
imagine if you win those prizes. I mean, forget supporting the charity for
Forget
a second.
that.
Forget that for a second. Imagine winning the prize. Think about this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also doing something good, making a change.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah.
I'm just turning it around for a sec while I read the comments so they don't look right up my nose, you know. Monique is certainly a treasure. Fascinating. Everyone's saying you're a treasure. Oh, fabulous story. Okay. And someone has to leave, but they say you're amazing at the end. So,
Oh, thank you.
are we
Thank
still
you, thank
walking
you.
from here, or
Yes.
are we going back that way?
Yes.
Okay.
So, let's see. Well, actually, no.
This way.
Let's see if we can just angle up this way, because the name of the street that Buford Studio was on is this street. It's Rue Vercingétorix. This is not the section of Rue Vercingétorix that his studio was on. It would have been like beyond. You see where there's a roundabout down there. We're not going to go down there because it's
Okay.
But that's the Place de Catalogne.
But this is an atrocity of a street to pronounce. That must be Latin.
It's Gaul. It's from Gaul.
Say it again.
Vercingétorix.
Oh my, forget it.
I know.
Okay.
So the street would continue down that way, and then beyond that little archway that we can barely see, it continues down there. And his studio was just a couple of blocks in.
Right.
But all of that has been completely demolished.
It sounds like that's the typical story from Montparnasse. It's just
Yes.
completely being rebuilt. Are we heading this way?
Yeah. So like I said, the place was falling down. And in Buford's later years, he was becoming increasingly mentally fragile. And the tearing down and the reconstruction of this area was very, very, disorienting
Sure.
for him. And oftentimes he would be found wandering around because he couldn't recognize his neighborhood. And finally, he just went missing for several days. Baldwin was out looking for him. All of his friends were out looking for him. Even people came in to Paris. They were not even in Paris. They came to Paris to look for him. When he was found, he didn't know who he was. He was completely incoherent, and he was hospitalized. And he was placed in a hospital called St. Anne's,
Right.
which is a psychiatric hospital which still exists. It's in the 14th arrondissement, and he spent the last 4 years of his life there.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you died in the St. Anne's Hospital.
yes.
And what year?
1979.
1979.
Yeah.
So you went down this whole journey of like looking for him, and then kind of looking for him in capital LFH, as in like a journey.
Yeah.
Serendipitous. It should be a book.
Well,
Finding Beaufort.
finding
Buford.
yeah.
I went to Beaufort because of the French.
The French
Is it a
people.
French name?
It is a French name.
Yeah.
People call him. People in France call him Buford.
Buford Delaney.
And they will want to put a T on the end instead of a D.
Yeah, right.
But he was actually named after the hometown of the woman who delivered him.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But it's pronounced Buford.
Yes.
And speaking of, just a little aside,
Yeah.
there you go.
Still.
And Edward says that Vercingetorix is the king of the Gauls, or was the
Yes,
king of the Gauls.
Gauls.
And he had a good comment. Oh, the totals come in. Someone put it 7770.
Okay.
We can get, and
We
then
can get there.
Ruth says buy a ticket for a friend. Maybe that's a really good idea. Imagine though if your friend won. How would you feel about that? Oh, I don't know about that, Ruth. It's a very lovely. Although it's in the spirit of giving, so I think it's a
That's
lovely
right.
idea.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, so we're coming back up to Avenue de Maine, and then we're going to go over to Place Josephine Baker.
Uh-huh.
She
Please.
had that beautiful image of Josephine up on the...
On the thumbnail for this?
Yeah.
What was the deal with the cheetah?
Oh, the cheetah is a great story.
It looked like crazy dangerous to me.
We have to cross
Did
over
they
here.
have the teeth taken out or something?
No. Cheetahs are not vicious. So Josephine Baker was given that cheetah by the owner of a theater that she was performing at. The cheetah was a prop for one of the acts that she was performing in. And Josephine Baker was absolutely crazy about animals
Right.
of all kinds. And she made that animal into a pet. This was at the highlight of her career, right? She was living in a villa in a western suburb of Paris called Le Vésinet. If you take the RER going towards Saint-Germain-en-Laye, Le Vésinet is a few stops before that.
Okay.
And just a fantastic property. And she had all kinds of animals.
Wow.
Wild animals, farm animals, regular pets.
Was she like in terms of? I'm not so well read on the Josephine Baker story. Was she like mega famous in the world, or just Paris, or
mega famous
both?
in the world.
Okay.
In the world.
So it wasn't just a French thing or a Paris thing.
Definitely not.
Anyone walking around with a cheetah, is pretty spectacular person. You can't get away with that.
That's right.
You and I can't get away with that.
That's right.
No.
And her cheetah, she would walk it. She would walk it in Paris. She even took it to the movies. And it would occasionally, eat one of the farm. She had chickens and stuff. It would occasionally eat one.
I thought you said eat one of the farmers for a second. I thought.
No.
I was like, how big is her property? And this
No.
doesn't sound very cool. One of the farm animals.
No, one of the farm animals. And she would, sometimes she would even get a matching, if she had some jewelry, she would get a matching collar.
Wow.
The cheetah was named Chiquita.
Chiquita.
It was a male cheetah, and she loved it dearly. So.
What a story.
Yeah. Oh, there's just a zillion stories.
I saw some pictures of her walking out of a metro exit with a. Wow.
She would take it to the beach.
When would that have been in terms of what year?
30s.
In the 30s.
Yeah.
Do you think if you could be in a time machine, would you rather be living in Paris in the 30s or today?
Oh, I think today.
Why is that?
I do think today. Because the 30s might have been a gentler time, but I think today it's much more of a melting pot, even though it doesn't like to think of itself that way. There are you can experience a taste of any culture in the world here.
You say it as we're walking past an Indian restaurant.
Yeah.
There you go. And a what is that? It's a pawn shop or
Yes,
something.
it's a porn shop.
This is a melting pot of a street.
Yes, there's a reason that there are porn shops on this street.
Sphinx.
Yes.
This is very multiculti here.
Yes, yes, and when we go farther, you'll see Japanese restaurants. And, yeah, you can experience any culture.
Brutus. There must be a Latin restaurant. Right?
Crepophile.
Crepophile.
Like, yeah. So creperie,
Black Pinky. What's going on, Monique?
Maison de l'Indochine.
Oh, wow, it's all happening. Sorry, what were you saying? Crepophile. That sounds illegal.
Crepophile means crepes, as Americans would say.
Sure.
And cider.
There's an American flag. It's all happening on this street. Look, yeah.
Oh yeah, cordon bleu. Well, and the British flag too.
Oh, yeah.
So the reason that there are sex shops on this street, we're in Montparnasse. The Montparnasse train station is not very far from here, and that is the station that serves Brittany.
Indeed, yes. Okay.
And so back in the day, Brittany was not considered a part of France. This was a really, really long time ago. And when people came here, they were considered foreign.
Let's keep walking, because when I pause on something for long, it can become the thumbnail for the video, and that would be weird.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was considered foreign.
It was considered foreign, and so crepe and things like that were considered foreign food. And then Brittany was absorbed into France, and so this is another culture that is now considered French, but was not at the time. But in any event, people from Brittany were traditionally poor, and the women who came here became prostitutes. A lot of them became prostitutes, and this is literally 5 minutes walk from the train station.
So women from Brittany came here and became prostitutes? Okay.
Yes, and so there was a lot of sex trade in this area, and that so those are remnants of it.
That's really interesting. I love that kind of stuff. And I believe it used to be called the train station, the Gare de l'Ouest, same as it used to be Gare de
l'Ouest.
Yeah, but I don't know why they changed it.
Okay, so this is the Hotel the M, which is boarded up, obviously, because hotels are not back in business yet. But you'll see that there's a plaque that honors Buford.
Oh, let's go look at it. Did you have something to do with this?
Of course.
Here we go.
This was my next thing, that Les Amis de Buford Delaney, the French nonprofit, organized to honor Buford. So this says Buford Delaney, portraitist and abstract expressionist painter, born in Knoxville, Tennessee, USA, frequented the restaurant Les Mille Colonnes at this address in the years 1950 to 1970.
Does it make you proud to stand here right now?
I love standing here right now. You have
I'll
no
show you,
idea
Monique.
how hard it was to get that up there. And we have a second plaque as well.
Close?
Yeah.
That's so cool. I've heard that these plaques, it feels weird to say plaque in my Australian accent. I heard they're not easy to...
They're not.
And they never do it for someone who's alive either, do they?
Generally not.
Okay, so how was it difficult? What was the... I'll just show what we were walking past.
Yes, we're walking past the Bobino. This is the theater where Josephine Baker gave her last performance.
Really?
It did not look anything like this at the time. The theater came out to the sidewalk. There was a big marquee up here, but this is the space.
So cool.
And
I love Paris history.
Buford loved Josephine Baker. And at the time he went missing, she was doing her last comeback performance.
Oh, wow. If you could compare Josephine Baker to a current singer or performer, is there anyone that you're like, well, she's kind of like her?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I don't know.
Is that too hard?
Yeah.
Then how can I imagine it?
That's really strange. That's a strange question.
I'm full of the strange questions. Deborah writes Beyonce.
I was thinking of Beyonce, but I don't know enough about Beyonce. I'm not into popular culture as...
Oh, that'll be hard for you to answer this question then.
Yeah.
Well, we'll stick with Beyonce.
But what I know about Beyonce, Beyonce she's outspoken about what she believes is right. She's definitely a mega star.
No cheater though.
No cheater.
Yeah.
She could, maybe.
Fierce and unapologetic, says Deborah, to describe Beyonce.
Yeah. And Josephine was that way.
And Edward writes Vercingetorix, but I think that's from the previous thing, not comparing Josephine Baker to.
Right.
That makes more sense.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
this is
so we're
lovely around here.
Yeah.
I've never been here.
So we're gonna go this way on this angular street.
I wonder why they've put these.
Chain.
Because that.
They
Okay,
don't
this
want
is.
that to fall off.
But this is also what you were talking about. That would have been a car park, there by the
Yep.
looks of it.
Yep.
So
See
they.
that car there?
Yeah. Cool. This is how Paris is changing, folks. Like these, I would wager that they'd never have seats here.
No,
usually. And Leighton says, "Woo! I made a live stream," as in he's probably never watched one before. So welcome. Josephine Baker was one of a time. Give her time, Oliver. I assume you're talking about Josephine Baker and not Monique there. I'm giving you time. I'm not cutting you off. Okay, Josephine was much more than just an artist. There's so many comments coming through that I find it hard to keep up while learning about all this.
she was actively active in civil rights. She loved children. She was very, very supportive of any child who was an orphan. You know about her rainbow tribe that she adopted.
I do. She adopted like 14 kids or something. 12.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an exaggerator. From all over the world, right? Yeah. I will. I'm gonna go deep into Josephine Baker after this.
Yeah. You could spend a lifetime looking into her.
Okay, the comment about give her time was give time to Beyonce. She might just get a cheetah. Okay, makes sense. Who knows? I think you know what my push is going to be, Monique, to get you into pop culture. Yeah, I think you like the old stuff. Here you go. I think you like the old stuff. I'm going to send you some Beyonce links after this.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
All right.
It's all right. Here we are, plus Josephine Baker.
And so, okay, so you see there's a little sticker there that says women are
What does that
power.
make you think when someone puts a sticker like that on something like that? Does that annoy you, or are you like, yeah?
Well, it annoys me in the sense that you can't read what's beneath it. If they had put it over here, that would have
Let's
been better.
reposition it.
No, but you can see it on two other sides. You can see what it
Well,
says.
someone's graffitied on this one.
Well, yeah.
We'll go third side.
Yep.
They put over the word philanthrope.
Okay.
I think I'm going to reposition it, if I can.
Okay.
Let's change. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. Okay, I can't.
You can't.
No.
But what it says is that Josephine was a music hall artist, a sub-lieutenant of the Free French Forces, so that was during the Second World War, and she was a philanthropist, and she was all of those things. Most people just think of her as a performer, but she was so much more. She risked her life for France during the Second World War, and she was generous to a fault. She was generous to the detriment of her own family.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
She was always giving. So one would think, okay, I've got plenty of money, but let me take care of my family first, and then I'll give. But she was spontaneous in giving, so she would give without thinking.
Mm.
And then many times that would backfire because then she couldn't do something that she needed to do for her homestead.
Wow.
Or for her kids. They never went, they were not neglected in any way, shape, or form. Don't think that. But when you find out about what happened at Les Milandes, which was her property down in the Dordogne, a lot of that was because, one, it was mismanaged. She wasn't paying attention, you know. But another reason was because she would just give.
Right.
She would give extravagantly. And then something would happen and there wouldn't be anything or not enough for what she was trying to do in her home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty admirable to be so generous.
Yeah.
But keep an eye on your family as well, guys, if you're in the same
Yeah.
position. I don't know if
Yeah.
we've got any
Yeah.
people at that level out there.
Yeah.
But why was this square? Was it because her last show was down
Yeah.
the road?
Yeah.
So how do we find, I mean, if you want to find it yourself, we're in the 14th arrondissement, but I mean, all you need to do would be to Google plus Josephine Baker and you'd find it.
Yeah. And it's in the shadow of the Montparnasse Cemetery.
Oh yeah. And is that where we're heading now?
Actually, we're not going to go that way unless you want to.
No, I'm following you.
We're going to go up here.
Okay.
And we're almost ready.
Oh, we're almost at the end of our walk, guys. How long have we been talking for? Can you guess? I can see, actually. Oh, you cheated. 99 minutes and 30 seconds. This bar's called Pinocchio. I actually like all the spread of chairs. It's kind of nice. I feel like these are ring-ins, these chairs, because they don't match the other ones, do they?
No, they don't.
Smart business people, I guess. Mm-hmm. This is really pleasant around here. Would you believe I've never been here?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so we're going to cross the street and we're going to go left. But if we were to continue straight, we would be back at the Montparnasse Cemetery.
I see. Okay, I've got my bearings. It's a good thing, like you said, if you're ever lost around here, you can see the Montparnasse from it. You know, it's the same with the Eiffel Tower as well. It's pretty good as a little lighthouse.
Exactly. Oh, I guess this guy is filming.
Who's filming?
There's a guy there. Is he filming?
Oh yeah, look. We'll film them filming. It looks like beyond a news thing. It looks like a proper.
Maybe.
Got a bigger stabilizer than me. It's not about the size of your stabilizer though, Monique.
That's right.
It's about how you use it. This way. Oh, they're doing a full shoot then. Maybe it's a music video.
Oh, maybe.
Have a little look. The magic of Paris. Okay. This way.
So, we can go see the second plaque.
Yes.
And then we'll go up to.
We were talking about that though. How difficult is it? Is it like nightmare? Don't ever try and do this thing?
You have to really be. Well, it depends on who you are, all right? And I don't mean that in a sense of, there would be discrimination or anything. It's a question of who owns the building.
Sure, okay.
Because if the owner of the building has no problem, or, if there's only one owner and the owner buys in, then it's not a problem.
Yeah.
If there are several people who own like apartments or whatever, then you have to get all of their permission.
Oh man.
And you also have to, this is this little hotel here.
I see it.
So this is the Hotel Odessa. This is the second place that Buford stayed when he came to Paris.
Lived at this address in 1953, Buford Delaney, portraitist, and that's the same text more or less at the top.
Yep.
Lived here in 1953. And then there's I've never seen one in Japanese before.
So that's for Fujita, who was a French-Japanese painter.
40 years before.
Well, yeah. He was part of that original wave of artists that I talked about.
Right.
Turn of the century.
And this is Hotel
Odessa.
Odessa.
Buford's plaque was there first. When that was installed, the Fujita plaque was not there.
Right. So do you think the Fujita people saw that you managed it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that the hotel owners were very keen to have the plaques here because this will attract business for them.
That's interesting because a lot of hotels do have these kind of similar plaques out the front. I wonder if it is good for business, but I wonder if it's good for spreading the word of Delaney as well.
I hope so.
I would think so, I think people staying here would look it up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And when the Knoxville families came, some of them stayed in this hotel, and
Right.
some of them stayed in the Hotel Central. We didn't see that, but some of them stayed in the Hotel Central. And when we did the art exhibition in 2016, there were 11 people that came from Knoxville for that as well. That was first. That was prior to Class Duo, the children's thing, and they stayed at the Hotel Le M.
The first
hotel,
plaque.
the first plaque that we saw, and they did the Buford Delaney walking tour that I created. Obviously, these two plaques are on that walk, and one of the women started to cry, and she said, "You've put the name of Knoxville, Tennessee on the walls of Paris." And she said, "And we don't have anything in Knoxville to honor Buford."
Yeah.
They have rectified that since then.
Oh, that's so good. That's so nice. What change you're making. I love it.
Yeah.
Why don't we stand somewhere that's a little nicer background and finish this walk with there?
We can go up to the Select.
Oh, good. That's where we finish. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll jump over your head here. What? There you go.
Okay.
Where is the Select?
The Select is on Boulevard du Montparnasse.
Do you go there for a coffee sometimes?
Sometimes. Hmm.
I might go there for a coffee. Is it open?
The terrace should be open,
Okay.
provided that it's not covered. I haven't actually been over there, so we're going to go up this street, the Rue de l'Ancre.
But as we're walking towards the end, I'm just going to remind you, because when I did a walk yesterday, I'm not reminding you, I'm reminding the folks at home. I did the walk yesterday. As soon as the walk finished, everybody started donating. It was so lovely. It was such a lovely thing to turn off the camera. And I feel like it'll be the same now. But just to remind everybody, because they don't want to miss the walk.
Right.
I get it. No one wants to get their credit card details out while they're watching a walk show.
It's true.
But the link is in the description. So you just need to scroll down. And as Ruth said, if you already got a ticket, get one for your friend.
Get one for
It's
your
like double generous.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you what, if someone wins one of the prizes on a donated ticket, I'm going to throw in an extra prize.
Woo!
For sure.
Cool.
I think so. Don't you think?
Oh, cool. Yes, absolutely.
But the reason I mention is because it's in the show, in the description. If you can't find the description, not everyone's au fait with YouTube.
Yeah.
You go to the EiffelTower.com/charity, and I don't know why I said it in an American accent. The EiffelTower.com/charity. Buy a ticket. I want to see it get to 8,000 ASAP.
Yeah.
But you guys know what to do, I think.
Yeah. Oh
And
my God.
And someone's just sent in a lovely super chat, Edward, which is super generous, but buy tickets. But Edward, with that super chat, I'm going to take Monique for a coffee after this at Select. How does that sound?
Yay!
Okay, so thanks to you for that, Edward. But tickets, not super chats. Look at that door, Monique. That's not a bad one. I'm a bit obsessed with doors. Have you seen my Facebook page?
Yes.
I'm over the top.
There are fabulous doors here.
And sometimes the concierge will let you in if you like. I found this amazing one over on the left bank by the Statue of Liberty flame. And I was looking in, the concierge came out and he saw me taking pictures. And he goes, "Oh, you should see inside." And I was like, "Well, can I see inside?" And he goes, "Yeah, what are you, an architect?" And I said, "No." Just the part, I didn't bother explaining what I do, but you know, if you show an interest, I've learned, people get on board. Oh, speaking of interest, okay, I have to do a brief pause.
Okay.
These I'm obsessed with. Do you know what they are?
Don't they block they're the things that keep the carriage from...
Exactly right. And I'm obsessed with them. So I'm going to just briefly, of the briefest moment, show these ones because these are amazing. I love them that they're so different. And
What are they called?
They call them chasse-roue in French. Like wheel, well, roue for wheel and chasse is like chase, I guess, or hunt. But I don't know how it works in English. But I call them chassis.
Okay.
And they, I collect, oh, they move. Oh, okay, I've got to come back here. That is a cool one. And I take pictures of them. And people will think I'm crazy for being obsessed by them. But
see, now I'll start looking. And look here, this is, remember I said that this area was occupied by a lot of people from Brittany. This is the Brittany mission behind these doors. If you were to go in there and go straight back.
I mean, it's a great door too.
Yep.
I can't help myself. I know we're doing an intro to Black Paris, but when I see chassis like that, there's no way I couldn't stop.
Right.
Okay.
Paris is a mix of everything. That's just why I love it.
Me too. I'm sweating. I'm too excited about everything. Things are all happening.
It's starting to get warm.
It's lovely. What a day.
It is.
So if you guys have questions for Monique, and I think mostly everyone's been watching, but if you got questions, now's a good time to get them out because we're nearing the end of this walk show.
Yep.
There's one did just come in from Edward. Does Monique have some comments on Sidney Bechet's or Bechet's legacy in France and Paris?
Oh, sure. So Sidney Bechet was probably the second most famous African American to live in France behind Josephine Baker. And they actually sailed over to France on the same ship to perform in the same show that made Josephine Baker an overnight superstar. That show was called La Revue Nègre, and it was performed at the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées on Avenue Montaigne in the 8th. Sidney was a part of that show. He befriended Josephine during that walk. Oh, just a sec. Just look here. So this is the Auberge de Venise.
Oh, I know.
This used to be the Dingo.
Yeah, I've heard about this place. And they've got it marked that it was the Dingo.
Yep.
This is where Hemingway met F. Scott Fitzgerald, I think.
Yep. And see, this used to be parking.
Ah, that's the other theme of this walk. How Paris car parks have gone out the window. No, there is only one theme to this walk. So what about Sidney Bechet's legacy?
So, Sidney Bechet was, geez.
So many distractions in the city, it's hard to keep.
Sidney Bechet was a jazz man. He was a soprano sax and clarinetist. And he has a very interesting history. He came to Paris. The performance with La Revue Negre was not the first time he performed in Paris. But he knew all the jazz people, and he was always part of bands. But he had a very bad temper, and he and one of his fellow band members got into a shootout.
A shootout?
A shootout in Montmartre, and people were injured. Bystanders were injured.
Oh no.
And both people were arrested, and he was sent to prison, and he was deported and was told that he would never be able to come back to France.
Oh wow, I guess that would make it harder to put plaques up for his.
Yeah.
Yeah?
But after the Second World War, there was a huge jazz concert organized in France, and it was a concert that it featured bebop, which was the newest form of jazz, but they wanted to compare bebop to the traditional jazz. So Sidney Bechet was allowed to come back to perform. And he was so well received that the French government said, okay, you can stay.
Really?
And he ended up, he made lots of records here. There was a performance that he gave at the Olympia Theater over near Opera that was packed, and so many people couldn't get in that they rioted.
Oh wow.
Outside, and they tore the theater down too.
What?
Yeah. And he's buried in a Western cemetery of Paris, at the cemetery of Gauche, and he has a beautiful stone there. This is the Select.
And voila, we made it.
Yeah.
Le Select American Bar.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was.
And they have an American bar, and the Dingo had an American bar.
How little I know. How much I'm learning. There's the another American bar across the road, but this is our final point, and it's relevant too.
It's relevant. So the Select was one of Buford's favorite restaurants, or cafes rather. It's a restaurant too, in Montparnasse. And in his last years, he would often be seen here, sitting in the little enclosed area there. He had an artist friend named Ed Clark who recently died, and Ed was also frequently at the Select. People took care of Buford as he got older and more emotionally and mentally fragile. I said before that he would be found sometimes walking around, just not knowing where he was. He would sometimes come to this restaurant and he would eat, and then he would get up and leave, not paying, and people would just pick up his bill.
Really?
Yeah, and if people saw Buford walking around in the street, people who worked at the Select, or maybe the Coupole even, because he did go to the Coupole as well, but he was always invited at the Coupole. The Coupole was very expensive.
Is that the Coupole? Okay,
yes.
yeah, okay, yeah.
The Coupole was very expensive, but he was invited there frequently to sit with people at their tables. But here, he would come in on his own. Okay, and everybody knew him, and so if they saw him looking a bit sort of like out of it, either they would come out and help him along themselves, or they would call somebody and say, Buford is here, please come and take him home.
The community.
Community.
And speaking of the community, this ends our walk that we've put on for you, the Paris fans, the Eiffel Tower fans, the Monique fans who are watching. I'm not sure, maybe new Monique fans.
Yeah, I hope so.
The walk is done. I saw some lovely comments that just came through that I'll read to finish on. Ruth says, what a delightful woman Monique is, and this has been a treat to watch. Thank you so much. A coffee is well deserved. How can I find information on the first African-American migration from the US to Paris? Is there information on your blog, your old blog?
I'll have to think about that. I have not written specifically about that. I've written about various aspects of various things, but never with that particular focus. So, mostly I will be talking about specific people who came at a certain time, but not necessarily about the migration itself.
We will track down some information and send it to you as well.
Yeah.
I'll add it to the link below for people who are watching this on the replay. But you can see, I think you can see that people saying merci,
Yes,
fantastic,
thank
fabulous,
you
thank you so
all.
much. Look, people are lovely, and they always are, and you've been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a final shout out, Monique and I are going to go sit there and have a coffee, and then I'm going to open up the fundraiser and we're going to take a look at it. So, if you want to contribute, this is the last time I'll say it. theeiffeltower.com/charity. I think you understand now that it goes to a good cause, especially right now. It's important to support this kind of stuff, but as well, always and going forward. But let's make a difference now.
Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
thanks
Thank
for the
you
walk.
all. Thank
And
you.
the other
Thank you,
thing,
Oliver.
my pleasure. But the other thing, Deborah's still awake in Virginia. Worth
Oh
saying.
my Lord.
That is amazing, Deborah. You're an
Yes.
MVP VIP.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But what was I saying? What was I going to say? Yes, the walking tours. If you want to book a tour like this with Monique and her team, or her husband, the link is
Just me
below
and
as
him.
well. It's just you two
Me
doing
and
the
Tom.
walks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, who knows? By the time they come, maybe you'll have a team. But it's entree to,
Black Paris.
so ENTREE. It's linked below. Go and check it out. Follow, like, and have a great time doing it. Hope you learned something. We'll see you next time. Looking forward to that
Bye.
coffee, because I sure am.
Okay.
Farewell, everybody.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
I'm
Is
from
that it?
Houston. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Bye.